Since we have a minute here or so, I'd like to share with you some of the smiling faces we've met along the road. Other professional storytellers working in their communities, in schools and festivals, working in correctional facilities, working on environmental and social justice issues. These folks are amazing. They are cultural activists, sharing their stories and their artistry in the various communities they live in. So proud to be a part of this professional community. All told, each and every one of them in their various communities have probably served tens of thousands of people, if not millions, over the decades and decades of the storytelling movement. Hopefully you'll catch them on stage. Definitely keep your ears wide open and your hearts open. They have such gifts to give to all of us. Thanks for logging on to Eth-No-Tec's Mindful Musings, where storytelling performances meet community dialogue through compassionate listening and sharing.
I'm frozen.
Oh, let's see.
Okay, I am here. Can you hear me?
Uh-oh.
Yeah, okay, you can hear me, but
we can
I
hear
am
you,
a
but you're
frozen
frozen.
person.
Yes.
Uh-oh.
Oh, no. As usual, this is the Eth-No-Tec in Eth-No-Tec. All right, but you can hear me and I can see you, and I am really excited to welcome all of you to Mindful Musings. And of course, you're all our friends. I can see you. It's so exciting. And we have a great program for you today. So today's Mindful Musings is Women Warriors. Oh, this always happens. Everything's perfect before we come online. And then, boom.
Even with rehearsing it went goofy.
Anyway, as I was saying, we have some very exciting readings for you today. It's Women Warriors, the pen is mightier, ... And I have invited two guests, and Gailey, who is on
Hello.
Long Island, and Genny Lim, who is in San Francisco. And I will tell you a little bit more about them later. But what you'll get to hear today is how our imaginations could be expressed in the written word. And whether you read the written word or you hear it being spoken, these words have the power to transform, to inform, to bring people together. And so that's what we want to do today. And it is, by the way, Women's Month. And I'm not talking about the monthly visitors that many of us no longer have to have in menopause, free at last. But we are also wanting in Women's Month to declare that we have the freedom to be women warriors, that we have the freedom to speak our minds, to not feel we have to be a certain stereotype as a woman. It is us women who are the holders of our families, of our communities. We're the ones that actually can see and hear the needs of our communities, our families, and our friends, that we are the ones that hear them and see them, and then are able to do something about it. So we need to really celebrate who we are as women. And we do invite all men to be women warriors too. So for today's program, I invited two artists, Genny Lim and Gailey, and both of these women are warriors. They are amazing women who I totally respect and totally admire. So first, let me tell you about Genny Lim, who's Chinese American, and who is the first San Francisco Asian American poet laureate.
Chinese.
And she is not only a fierce warrior of words, but she is also a playwright. And by the way, do you remember, Jenny, when I was the costume designer for your Angel Island play? About three of us were in our little in our room up here sewing away and having a great time. Anyway, it was wonderful. And so she not only is a poet, but she's also a jazz singer. And she is a mother and a grandmother. And by the way, one of her grandsons is a prodigy visual artist. It's amazing what this child does. And she's always there to support him. And Ann Gailey is Hapa, Mexican, and Taiwanese. And she is a prolific and awarded writer. She does autobiographical novels, articles for magazines and newspapers. She's a mentor to writers, an organizer, a starter of very successful endeavors like the Litquake, is it, of Orcas Island? Or Lit Walk, or
Lit Fest
on Orcas Island. And she is also a mother, an extraordinary wife and assistant to her husband, who was the program director for the our Orcas Island library. Is that right? Program director, or she's now the director?
He is, yeah.
Yeah. And one of her novels has actually become a movie. Woman Warrior, yes. So after each of us will be reading, one of us readers, oh dear, can you hear me, Sue? Okay. One of us readers will be asking a question or making a comment, just so that we have some space between readers that will transport you to different worlds. And then after all of us have spoken, have read what we're going to read, then we will open it up for everyone to have questions if you have, or comments you want to make. And we might even start the conversation about authenticity and what it takes for women to be authentic in today's world, or in even the past worlds. So, so Robert?
I'm going to do some pausing here for technical things. Something froze. Obviously, Nancy did.
Well, so I was going to go first, but maybe Jenny, do you want to go first, since Robert still has
maybe
frozen?
he can unfreeze you in the meantime. We miss the animated you.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, thank you for that warm introduction, Nancy. We had talked a little bit about what we wanted to focus on, and I think us women have a lot of commonalities, and we learn a lot from our culture and from our mothers. And my grandparents, I never met either on either side. My mothers or my fathers, they stayed in China, and we were here, and they passed away, and we never connected. So that's always been a sad thing for me. But I dream about my grandmother a lot, because she never set foot in the US. Grandfather brought my father over, and when he went to visit her, went back to China, she was, lo and behold, she had vanished. And no one really knew what happened to her, what the story was. Some say that because she loved the opera, that there was a terrible opera fire in the theater, and she might have perished along with some of the other audience members. Others say because she was quite an attractive woman, that she ran off with one of the opera stars. So we never know what happened, but this is a piece about her called Ancient Beauty. And it's not a really factual, actually. It's kind of a composite of her story and mine. But you'll hear. The sleeping beauty lies frozen, stumbling on bound feet over a century ago. crossing the raging sea through famine and war, concubinage and exile, to taste the bittersweet fruit of the American dream. She would never taste that dream. Life moved on like glass, waiting to crack. Truth was an unopened wound. Behind walls of barbed wire and steel, the immigrant says, I've moved on. But what does that mean? Is the memory frozen, forgotten? Is the past erased? A mother who loses her child is like an amputee. No passage of time can ease the pain. Eyes staring underwater, under rubble, on each lunar new year, when the souls of children come to life. Some believe the shadow on the moon is the rabbit. Others say it is Chang'e, the goddess of the moon. When the waves crash against the ship, the rudder charts its own course. Home is metaphor for memory, strewn among broken shells, a passport. To whom does it belong? To the paper woman who flew to the moon? This one is Cloud Woman. Like a secluded stream, longing to find the river's mouth, I, daughter of Han, have been too long tumbling from the clouds of Wu Mountain into the abyss of the far-off sea. When the east wind pierces through the great wall of waves, my heart soars through the darkness to glimpse the moon where the light of Taoist women poets still shine from another time. Only the immaculate heart that knows the true essence of immortality can thread meaning to the farthest corners of heaven and earth. The Taoist Princess Yao could take the form of clouds and transform into a beautiful maiden at will to seduce male travelers on the Wu Gorge. You, daughters of Han, must come to understand that the history of love is an epic of self-sacrifice and silent determination in the absence of form. This is a poem I wrote in tribute to Hong Lu, the wonderful painter who passed away maybe, 4 years ago, 3 years ago. And they did a retrospective of her work at the Asian Art Museum, I think it was, in Dion. My true name. Don't ask me my true name. Don't ask me the date of my birth or the place where I left myself behind. Don't ask me if I'm a citizen, a resident, an alien, a tourist, or a gaji, paper daughter, or other. Like the stars in the heavens, I am not other than I. You only glimpse the shadow of me, the air between our breaths. In the life of men, boundaries shift with a stroke of a pen. Don't ask me my true identity. My memory is forged. Once my passport was handed me, my journey between worlds expired. I was free to wander, to leave myself behind. I was free to dream who I was, but lineage is stronger than broken bamboo. Chuk-sing, and my blood, the marrow of Hyung-ha, red clay. Don't call me by my true name unless you know all my names. Hu-chi Nui, Nguyen Yin, Mui Mui, Day Day, Paw Paw, Cleo King, mother, daughter, woman, sister, Pang Yu, friend, until you cross that bridge with me, until you walk with me and let my shadow go before me, until you write the stories that history denied, until you devour the fly from your net of illusions. You cannot dot the missing I in my true name. I don't know if anyone wants to jump in, Anne or Nancy, in the middle of my reading. You're welcome.
They're so visual. I feel like they really embody storytelling a lot more than some poems. I can feel a
thank you.
movie coming from them. I can visualize the scenes. I really love it.
Thank you. This one is the dialect my mother spoke, which used to always shame me because, you know, the aristocrats in Chinatown spoke the Mandarin, the Northerners, and we spoke this peasant village dialect, which was the dialect that most of the first wave of Chinese immigrants who went through Angel Island spoke. And because they were seafarers and they lived in the Pearl River Delta area. And so they actually migrated all over the world. You find my kinsfolk in even Africa, Mauritius, different places like that. And even Mexico and the Philippines, because every year the Lim family, they have a reunion and they would go to places where the diaspora happened. So they would go to the Philippines or Taiwan or, you know, Mexico. And so that goes to show that, you know, that we've migrated everywhere. But unlike a lot of the settler colonialists, we blended in with the indigenous people, intermarried, took on their languages and their a lot of their, you know, their lore. Okay, this one is first language. Hoisan is my confession to the homeland of my dreams. Hoisan Wa is the lyric of the wind singing rails, echoing in Summit Tunnel, where old bones under 1,659 feet long tracks wait to ascend the 33 heavens. Hoisan Wa is the iron dragon, the chugging heartbeat of the mother waiting for her son's return. Hoisan, the birthplace of nomads lost in the land of forgotten tongues, seafarers plying the oceans in junks, defying squalls, pirates, choking on weevils and English syllables, sinister laws disrupting the flight of birds and the sanctity of memory. Dreamers buried in unmarked graves, crushed granite, abandoned mines and haunted wine caves all along the riverbeds of the Yuba and Sacramento rivers. A fading voice can still be heard. And if you listen hard, in the San Joaquin Valley, in every bachelor Chinatown, from Hanford and Locke to Fiddletown, hawking sand dabs and fresh abalone in pickup trucks along dirt roads, sidewalks lined with produce, sea cucumbers and cuttlefish, bartering in Hoisan Wa to a tone-deaf breed. Yit mun bong, buchi sang teng wa anui, to which they reply in their first language, English. What? So I'm going to just read two short ones and then we'll go on to Nancy. This one, I do a lot of, I live in this condo and there's always noise. There's somebody's car siren going on. It's really bugging me all day long. Anyhow, that's city life. This one, I'm trying to get to my center and kind of just let the noise wash away. And this is Journey to Satchidananda, to find that place of emptiness and equilibrium. This for Alice Coltrane. When you make the journey, tell no one. The best laid plans are firewood for the flames of impermanence. When you hear the music, feel the brush of her fingers like water over mountains, hills, and valleys. And know that all sounds are mantras and that all desires are empty. Now meditate on mine, the path that leads to the summit, like a child leaping into the arms of his mother, the source of love and of all possibilities. And I'm finished with this one for Maya Angelou, Why the Caged Bird Sings. She had an unveiling of the plaque in front of the San Francisco Public Main Library several months ago, and I recited this poem. If you're going to die this evening, what will you do in the time that remains? That's a quote from Mahmoud Darwish, the great Palestinian poet. Why does the caged bird sing? She sings when darkness falls, not waiting for tomorrow's call. Why does the caged bird sing? She sings because she does not wait for the sun to lift her from her fate, or some quick fix or a court of law to save her from the lyncher's claw. Now this bird waits for no one. Her flight to freedom's never done. To be dragged by hatred's chain, hell no, that is not her game. She is not invisible. She is indivisible, like the sun that rises on her black, brown, and yellow sisters who stand proud and tall beside her. She knows that life is an unmade bed ready for love any day, any weather. So tell me, why does the caged bird sing? She knows that freedom rings with whatever joy you bring. And if you're going to die tomorrow, what will you do in the time that remains? That's why the caged bird sings. Hey, here's some responses here.
Yeah.
Okay, here.
Was, that was amazing, and I hope I'm not having to read right after you. I hope it's going to be Nancy.
Oh,
Who wants to go after a poet laureate?
I know those words, the words, the power of your fierceness and in your words is
Thank you.
it's so inspiring. Yeah,
Yeah, I really got that last one. Got a
Yeah.
little rock in my throat.
goes right into the soul and heart. Thank you, Jenny, so
Thank
much.
you.
Yeah. So, but, everyone, I'm sure you will have comments and questions later. So please hold on to them because there will be a time for you to do that. So I am going to read from my new published book, Red Altar. I hope I'm not going to freeze. And it is a chapter about the first generation who came here in 1850 from China and started in the Monterey Bay area. And the chapter I want to read is before they came and how the So-Mei, who is the matriarch of our family, great-great-grandparents, was match married. And what happened was she was lucky to have seen her future husband, when most women are not privy to that. They might have a photo or if that, but the match is made even without their consent. Usually it's the parents to the parents with a broker, a matchmaker broker. So I'm going to start in the past all the the description of how she had to create her own, sew and design her own wedding outfit, and the embroidery and the, gosh, and the very little symbols that she embroidered that would bring good fortune and good luck and longevity. And I'll skip to the part where she is talking about what she's afraid of and what she's going to have to go through. So her betrothed's name was Kwok Bo. She remembered seeing him that one time near the water well. He was of medium height, had a queue, the usual long pigtail, running down his back, proving his allegiance to the Qing Manchurian emperor. If you didn't keep your queue, you would be arrested as a traitor or a spy or a rebel. Of course, he also shaved his hair back to behind his temples every 10 days. This way, it was just a part of the traditional men's hairstyle, and so he looked at least safe. So May thought, at least she knew he was not a rebel, a man who just hangs around doing nothing except trouble. But what about a smile? That was important. A smile told you a lot about somebody. And what about his laugh? Was it rough? Was it forced? Was it a happy laugh? Was he a kind person? Or someone who would rule over her as if she were his personal slave? So May would not stand for that kind of life. Her face tightened in resolve, her fists clenched. She would run away anywhere rather than be beaten with a bamboo whisk by him or worse by his mother. It was common knowledge that mothers-in-law ruled the household. If Kwok Bo's mother did not like her, So May would be treated like a common beggar from the street and treated like an ox meant only for work. Worse. So May would be abused from morning until night and worked to the bone only after midnight, and after her husband had first taken from her what he wanted and what he thought was his right, would she be able to have any peace? So May shivered again. She had heard so many stories about girls committing suicide because they had been married into an abusive family, like her friend next door. So May's mind started to wander back in time as her memory began to unearth what happened to her friend, Mei Ling, a few years ago. She and So May had played together, walked to the well to fetch water together, shared secrets with each other. But she was gone now, forever. She had been married to a man who was very handsome, richer than most in their village, but whose charm turned out to cover how mean and demanding he was. What he was thought to be her dream come true soon became a nightmare. Her family kept telling her to do whatever they demanded, and maybe the beatings would stop, the raping would stop. They warned her that their family would lose face, that they would be shamed if she left this important family. Didn't she know how lucky she was? After 1 year, having been abandoned by her own family, left in this abusive family without protection, it was too much. Taking her life was better than what she endured in the here and now. So May was sure her own family would never let that happen to her, but sometimes families hid their horror. How would her own family even know? So May tried to switch out of her negative thinking. Why was she dwelling on those dark stories? She reprimanded herself and told herself to stop thinking such shady thoughts about marriage. It would be a horrible way to start her marriage. Perhaps she would actually be one of the lucky ones. Her marriage would turn out to be the best in the entire county. She hoped. Now So May turned her attention to the love stories that she had been told as a young girl. She remembered the love songs sung on the boats at night that drifted to the shore. She smiled as she recalled how excited she and her sisters would be, sharing their dreams about the kind of man they'd marry, the kind of marriage they would have, and the number of children they each wanted. And they promised that their children would play together and grow up together as cousins. So May sat on the edge of her bed, her knees bouncing up and down with nervousness and anticipation. On this day, she would be stepping into a life that held only uncertainties. She shivered at the thought. She sat on the bed she had shared with her younger sisters all her life. Never again would she feel the familiar comfort and company of their warm bodies cuddled next to her own. So Man ran her hand over the warmth that covered their bed every day and night as long as she could remember. She had grown up with the quilt she and number 2 sister had sewn together when she was 8 years old and her sister was 7. Learning to sew is very important, their mother had warned. It will help you get a good husband someday. Your skills will save him lots of money. So May remembered it had taken almost a year to just organize and sew the many quilt patches of red and blue and yellow together with each of their satisfactions. She now leaned down over the worn quilt and gave it one last sniff. She wanted to always remember its smell, the smoothness of its old cotton and its fading colors. So May stood to check her hair one more time. She had combed her waist-long black hair into 2 buns, one on each side of her head, just above her ears. Looking into the mirror, she put on a light pink color onto her lips. She hoped he would find her pretty. She worried whether her face was round enough, were her eyes bright enough, big enough, and how about her lips? Would he like kissing her? So May could barely keep her eyes from tearing. She would soon be leaving her family forever. At 16, she wanted to stay in the warmth and safety of her parents' home and in the company of her siblings. Oh, but her own mother had been married when she had just turned 15, and so her parents had scolded her that at 16, she was already past her prime marrying age. She was to wed now, or she would be an old spinster at 17, at which point, they warned her, she may never find anyone to marry her if she waited. So May's sister gave her a hug and returned to the busy family room to continue folding red paper flowers to hang on a string outside of their simple home. She was now left alone with her fears. Suddenly, So May was shaken out of her thoughts as voices and drumming grew closer and closer. Soon her husband-to-be would be at her doorstep. So May looked around her room one last time. She quietly said goodbye to each item in her room that held so many memories. Her straw doll, the rocks and shells she had collected, one picture book she had perused over and over again, and so much more. It was a small room, but she was so lucky to have had this private room with her sisters. She now carefully walked over to the bedroom door. She stepped over the threshold, entered the courtyard, walked over to a crack in the nearest wall and peeked out. She saw the noisy entourage coming her way. She took a deep breath and let out a long sigh. She was as ready as she could be for this unknown fate. Her new life would soon be on her doorstep, and when she took that one step out of her home, the home she knew all her life, it would no longer be hers. I say I'm frozen again. Okay. Silently, with the most gracious of movements, May wiped a single tear from her cheek and swallowed a sigh. And like her mother before her, and her grandmother before her mother, and on back for thousands of years, she lowered the traditional red cloth over her face. Only after she had served tea to his parents, only then would they be husband and wife. Her new husband would not be allowed to lift the veil to see her face until they were alone in their wedding chamber after guests paid their last visits to congratulate them. She trembled at the thought of the veil being lifted, the innocence that was hers that would no longer exist. She would be living a completely different life. So May quivered. Her sisters joined her in the courtyard, took her hand, and together walked slowly to where her parents and brothers stood. There her parents escorted her, one on each side, and crossed the inner courtyard together. She took a longing gaze at her home, the courtyard where she played for hours as a child, at the garden where all of them toiled to plant the needed vegetables for their meals, the chickens pecking at the dirt, the doorways to everyone's rooms. She looked to the sky and whispered with a wish to the ancestors, please, please keep me safe in this new life. So May now stood in front of the wooden double doors to the outside world. Her parents slowly opened them, and sunlight poured in, reflecting off her crown. May gingerly stepped over the threshold, onto the packed dirt, just beyond the doorway and out of her former life into the open space, into the unknown. She took in a long breath of village air, let it out slowly, and with it, plead ancestors that her new life would be sunny as this day. End of chapter 3. I can't remember. Yes, but the end of that chapter 4. No, that was 3. The next one is Kwakpo. So I'm frozen again, but I can hear you, I think, and I hope you heard me.
Your story really does keep the listener in suspense. Like I'm waiting with bated breath to find out what's going to happen to her. And, all her anticipation. I'm like, I know it's going to be an inevitable disappointment. And I want to know if this story was based on your grandmother's story or
my grandmother's side. Yes, my mother's grandmother's great-grandmother's great-great. She is my great-great-grandmother. Yes. Yeah, from 1850. This particular chapter takes place in 1849. She's about to be married to the matched man that that the matchmaker made for her. And so so this is before they came.
You have to buy the book before you know what's going to happen to her, right?
I know, exactly. It is available. Just let me know if you want one, and I can.
Will you post the information on the chat? Yeah, maybe that.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Nancy, I can't wait to read it. And I'm really curious if you had any journals from those relatives or ancestors, or if you had to do a lot of research to obviously fit in.
Yeah, lots and lots of research. And I luckily had one relative, my Aunt Mary, who was the granddaughter of May. And so she was born my Aunt Mary was born in San Francisco, but she went back every summer to Monterey to play with the cousins. But she particularly wanted to stick around all the elders and listen to all the stories. And so that's how I got most of the stories and a little bit of a description of each of the characters. So that is how that happens. And I, of course, one's imagination fills it all in. But for example, my Aunt Mary said that that Somay's first daughter, Kwakmoy, who's also a big part of this book, was a tomboy. So I got to make her feisty. And on the other hand, Somay had to be fairly feisty because women didn't ordinarily come to America. Mostly just the men did. So you know that she was already a little different, a little more courageous, a little bit more sure of herself. So, yeah. So, Anne, I think you're frozen now.
No, she's moving.
Oh, I'm just very still.
Okay. Okay. So, yes. So please, everyone, please now welcome Anne.
Thank you. So I actually have not written a novel yet. I just am finishing this novel. I've written memoir and essays for different publications, and I've written a bicultural relationship column as well. The memoir is what was turned into the movie A Nice Girl Like You, and we'll talk about that a little later. The novel was challenging because it is about a character who is half Taiwanese, and I had to really get into the mom and grandma characters, and I really struggled with, is this Asian, are they Asian enough? And finally, after a couple of years, I kind of let that go and was like, well, it's really based on some of my experiences, even though it's fiction, and realized we all have different experiences, and who's to say what's really more Asian or not. But I think it's no coincidence that my first novel is all about someone obsessed with food, because there's no getting around when you have a Chinese mom, at least in my generation. Um, Food is how you show love. I maybe got hugged twice before the age of 30. But when I did something well or I was down, my mom would make me a feast. It might be Mongolian barbecue or a 10-course dinner. So that was how we showed love. And that's in this book, even though in this prologue, you won't feel a lot of, or won't get to experience some of the more Asian characters. But I also wanted to keep the reading under 8 minutes for you. So this is the prologue. The book is called The Ark of Taste, and it's about a young woman who searches for lost foods, which is a real job, to try and prevent them from going extinct. And she does this while she's searching for her Chinese mother, who is depressed in a culture that some say don't really have a great word or words for depression. So this is the prologue. You like thinking about the vault. You often picture it built into the side of an icy mountain on an island floating far above the Arctic Circle, shrouded in absolute silence. You find the thought of it calming, even though its nickname is the Doomsday Vault, because its sole existence is to make it possible to restart humankind after a global crisis of apocalyptic proportions. Yet the vault does not contain weapons, intelligence data, or medicines, nor does it contain the items you personally would want to help you survive an apocalypse. Your favorite pair of sweatpants, your record collection, your lost mother's postcards, your Taiwanese grandmother's recipes. Instead, it holds seeds, 1 million varieties of plant seeds that can be coaxed from the earth and consumed. In essence, it's a modern-day Noah's Ark for agricultural diversity, a quiet promise that those who survive will be able to feed themselves. You are drawn to this idea of a backup plan of these proportions. It means that no matter how badly we humans mess things up, and boy, do we show a propensity for that, we can start over. The last time you started over, it was 1990. You were 20 and you left LA to follow a boy to New York City, not the cleaned up city you'll come to know more than a decade later. In 1990, there were 2,245 murders and 93,377 robberies. 93,379 if you include the 2 unreported incidents of your car's stereo being stolen out of your Hyundai hatchback in broad daylight. It was also the year the Central Park Five went on trial for the assault of the Central Park jogger, creating a raw undercurrent of racial friction you could feel everywhere you went. If only the city knew what they would know 10 years later. The Central Park Five, some of whom served 13 years in prison, did not commit the crime. But you put up with all of that because you were in love, not just with the boy, but with food. And New York City was the mecca of food. How could you know that mere months after you left LA, it would begin its meteoric rise in the restaurant ranks in rival New York City? 3 months after you left, a young Austrian chef by the name of Wolfgang Puck earned a James Beard Award at his restaurant Spago. His former pastry chef, Nancy Silverton, introduced Angelinos to artisan bread from a tiny storefront known as La Brea Bakery. And Nobu Matsuhisa opened the most celebrated Japanese restaurant in the world, making sushi a household dish, all from less than a mile from where you had once lived. Yet New York City lured more food lovers from around the world, and you were not immune. The first time you discovered Dean and DeLuca was how you imagined other people might discover God. As they walked to a church or synagogue for the first time, breathing in the scent of wooden pews, or took in the light pouring through stained glass windows of a centuries-old mosque, that was like you breathing in the sense of foods you'd never tasted but suddenly craved. On Fridays, you took the A train to the C train to the E, then walked 2 blocks to meet the boy for lunch. You held hands and waited in line for what you had an inkling was the best falafel you'd ever tasted in your life, from a little cart with no name in the shadows of the Twin Towers. Yes, those Twin Towers. From a man named Nabi who spoke no English. Even when you travel abroad years later, in every city you search for a falafel that might rival that one, from that stand and that cook whose whereabouts eventually became unknown. When you do find one that looks hopeful, you never eat it on the spot. You bring it back to wherever you are staying. You put it down on the counter. You cut up green onions and parsley and sprinkle them on exactly like Nabi did. Even though it never happens, you hold out hope that one day you'll taste something close to it again. In 1990, there were also fewer choices. Gluten-free was not a thing yet. DIY meal kits were not delivered to one's doorstep. It was a pre-Amazon pantry, pre-Tinder, pre-Google world. When you wanted food, you had to grow it or go to a market and buy it. When you wanted to know something, you had to call someone on a landline, read an encyclopedia, hunker down in the library, or figure it out yourself. And when you wanted to go out with someone, you actually had to ask them out. There were also seemingly fewer choices when it came to sexual orientation. LGBTQIA was merely LGB back then. Friends were straight, gay, bi, or maybe a drag queen. The term non-binary hadn't been used yet, despite a majority of indigenous cultures around the world historically accepting 3 or more genders. Almost all gay leaders of rock bands, gay actors, and gay politicians stayed closeted. You remind yourself of all these facts as you face the revelation that the end of your relationship may be near. You ask yourself how you've arrived at this apocalyptic point with no backup plan, no personal doomsday vault, sitting on a bench in the middle of Central Park wearing a wedding dress. Not a poofy white lace one, but a traditional red silk and gold embroidered kippah, contemplating whether to abandon the love of your life at the altar. Not because you don't still love him, but because you've seen the way he looks at the man who loves him too. You wonder why you weren't better prepared for this moment. Is it because you were distracted by hunting for lost foods and your work to save them, or for your love for the boy? Did you tolerate the city because of that love? Because it helps to have context when life as you know it changes, when the city changes, when the person you love changes, when you too change, all because there are so many and so few choices.
Wonderful. I was just watching one after another of Iron Chef yesterday.
Ah,
And thinking, especially when civilization devolves and degenerates, I think that's when people really appreciate taste, the sensorialness of eating, smelling, tasting food. It's an escape. And I think,
Yeah.
that your book is going to really be coming at the right time. People are really become real foodies.
well, there's
Even
an interesting trend too in speculative fiction. There's the book, The Land of Milk and Honey, and several that work on that theme of a future world where food is scarce and only the really elite have access to the good food, and
Mhm.
everyone else is suffering. So as climate crisis happens, we're seeing more stories that reflect the loss of future foods. But all around us, I mean, I think what inspired me was in Italy, there are only two women who can make these noodles called the threads of God. And when those two women die out, no one else will be able to make them. And they're related
Whoa.
to rituals that have been going on there for 300 years. They sent Jamie Oliver, the chef, to try and learn. They sent Berea, the pasta company, tried to learn, and they couldn't do it. And I just started to get obsessed with those kinds of foods.
Because
that
it was so complex, or
they're
because she
very
wouldn't share?
complex. They're gossamer thin and they're latticed. And
Ooh.
all they do is, yeah, put them in some sheep's broth and give them to pilgrims twice a year.
Oof.
Whoa.
But the
Ooh.
younger generation doesn't want to learn, or
Yeah, that's
they don't
always the
have the
problem.
skills.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But even and more so now than ever, I think. I mean, this is not new. I mean, because there are times in our history repeated over and over again. This is when we need comfort, and food is our comfort. Food is a tradition that runs through our family, whether we are copying our parents' recipes or not. You know that the way things taste, you are striving to make them taste like your mother's or your dad's. It's just. But to talk about the climate change, we're all going to need to learn how to grow our own food.
Hydroponics.
Really need to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, I mean, cooking, you brought up the point about all the cooking shows. There are so many people who don't know how to cook. I'm shocked because I've been cooking since I was 8 years old, like real dinners.
Yeah.
But look at the obsession with the shows is growing and growing and growing.
Mhm.
So they have the urge, like it's in them to want to be part of cooking. And Michael Pollan, he has a great phrase. He says, all cooking is transformation. And I think that act of watching someone build something and then
Yeah.
the sexuality of the food, that's very Chinese, Taiwanese,
To
and
me, it's a form of
Thai.
alchemy. Alchemy,
Yeah.
you know?
It is science. It's really science too, especially
Yeah.
baking. Oh my. Yeah.
Flavors.
So
Let's
let's
open it up to
Yeah,
everyone.
so let's open it up. And one of the topics we wanted to talk about was authenticity. How today any of us can to be authentic to ourselves, what the pressures are to not be authentic, but particularly for women, what it is to be authentic, and then how it translates to our art forms, to the where we work, and so on. Oh, there I go again.
I want to use the metaphor that Anne is using for food again, because I had to bring in the Iron Chef again. But there was one Iron Chef who was, competing against another great chef who wasn't an Iron Chef, and the judges selected the new younger Iron Chef as the winner because they said his recipes were innovative. They did, and the other one who was Japanese was too traditional, was very familiar. And for me, that's kind of the whole issue about authenticity. Like, do we want to be, like transformed into something other than we were and have been for generations and generations? Do we want to create a new identity when we come to this country to be American, and to grab that American dream? Or do we want to cleave to the tradition and preserve the foods, the culture, the stories, the memory? So there's always this struggle for immigrants, and I'm throwing it out there for anyone to address.
But also, it's a struggle for any of us in any point in our
Yeah,
evolution or
right.
our no matter how long we're here. Because what is being
Mhm.
authentic? I mean, I'm not just Asian American. I'm not just Chinese. I'm a woman. I am short. I am a little overweight. So many things. And how what is it to be authentic to yourself when maybe you don't even know your own authenticity? You know, you don't really
That's
know
a good
all
point.
of
And
who you are.
I mean,
So,
tradition aside, authenticity is challenging because I think it's the poet Shin Yu Pai who said, there's no one right way to be Asian American, and there's no one right way to be a woman, right? And especially when you're a minority whose family might have experienced diaspora and you've migrated sometimes through violent history, you know, those people, they grapple with what do they keep uh, from their family history, what do they keep from their culture, and it's different for everyone, what everyone's going to grab or remember or keep. And it's the same thing for foods. You know, I grappled with what really is authentic Mexican or Chinese or Taiwanese food. My mom was an amazing chef, and I just wrote about this one recipe throughout my book. And then I researched it, fact checked it, and I realized I can't find anyone who knows this recipe. And all my years, I thought it was some authentic Taiwanese recipe, but I think she's altered someone else's and named it something else. So,
but that was her being authentic to herself.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I think that's, that we all, whether you're Asian American or Jewish or Scotch or Irish or African American, I mean, we all have this this need, I think, for our own souls to feel free to be authentic to ourselves. So
And
let's open it up right now and see if anyone has any thoughts, any questions about your own, you know, what is
Now go ahead and unmute
today?
yourself when you want to talk.
Yeah.
and there's a raise your hand button. Otherwise, us three will just keep
Yes, please don't
gabbing.
keep talking. And really, men can be women warriors too. And so and men have to be authentic. This, I think, it's even harder for men to be authentic in our society, but we'll see what they feel.
I
Okay.
think one of the issues with authenticity is it becomes more challenging when someone outside of your culture has certain expectations of what they think is authentic. So I think of the author Jane Wang, who just won the Washington Book Award, and she wrote Meet Me Tonight in Atlantic City. And it's a memoir about her dad who gambled away the family fortune and her own life. But it starts with her mother's family's migration out of China and the starvation that they experienced, and sexual assault, and a lot of things that were really horrible. But it also goes into her dating in Seattle as an Asian immigrant. And when she went out to publishers, some of them only wanted her to focus on the terrible plight of her family in the past, didn't want her to talk about anything in her adult life or her modern dating life. And that was because to her, they really wanted the migration porn, the immigration porn. You know, that's what they saw. That's how they saw her. They couldn't see her as anything other than that to them. And that's challenging for a writer. And so she rejected those publishers.
Okay, we're going to be quiet now.
Comments and questions?
Okay, anyone, just raise your hand.
Or unmute, yeah, and speak.
Yes.
Oh, there's
Sheila.
a hand there.
Yes, yay.
Sheila.
Hi, Sheila Rubin here. I am so honored. I am so honored to be here. I have tears in both of my eyes. Nancy, I started Red Altar and then my housekeeper hid it from me. So I've only got like halfway through and I can't wait to read the rest of it. I love it. It is so deep and it is funny and it is profound and there's levels in the sewing. You talk about the sewing and how your amazing great grandmother, how she figured out how to sew all these things. And it's just like the complexity and then the symbolism and I can't wait to read the rest of it. I will find it or I'll buy myself another copy. This today is so touching my heart because this is about women warriors, and this is about the unspoken being spoken and being witnessed. And it's like, I deal a lot with personal shame, and I teach my clients about their shame and all of that. And shame heals. Shame thrives on secrecy, and it heals through being witnessing. And so all of the complexity today, and it's like, I'm honored to be witnessing here. I'm so honored to be with you. And I have my neighbor's dinner date is picking me up and she's ringing the bell, so I have to go. But it just, thank you, Nancy, for bringing us together. And thank you, the beautiful women warriors reading. I have you in my heart, and everybody here. It's like, I feel touched. I feel deeply touched.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila. Thank you so much. And we are just as touched that you are here with us, that you took the time to do that. Yeah.
It's taken me a lot of years to find this community, and I thank you for sending so many invitations. And it's like, thank you for this. It's
You're
life-changing for me.
You're welcome. Have a wonderful dinner.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
We'll see you again.
So we'll see you again.
Actually, Nancy, you had mentioned and when we were preparing about an old tradition with when Chinese had a second daughter and they had a box of sand. And you didn't really go into more detail, but I had never heard about that. I want to know if that is a scene in your book, and if you could tell us about that, what that
No, yeah.
about.
It's not a scene in my book, but it is. But I know that as just reading and all the reading I have done and stuff, I know that, and you can see it today in China when during the revolution you can only have one child, so they would give up their daughters because sons were more desired. But in the old days, you could, most Chinese were very poor, and most of China was rural, so most of them were farmers, and so they had to have a lot of children so that they had helping hands. But they wanted men, they wanted sons. So one daughter is okay, but a second daughter, no, it's going to be too much. They're going to cost us too much. And you train them, and what happens is that they get married and they're gone because they always have to live with the husband's family. And that's where she then, helps them. So second daughters were unwelcome. So there would always be a little box of sand next to the birthing bed. And if it was a second daughter, they would take the child and they would turn it upside down and put it into, face down on the sand and suffocate it. So
Wow.
this was, I'm sure the mother didn't like doing that, but it was usually the husband, I think, who ordered that, and maybe the mother-in-law.
Hmm.
So we've come a long way.
Yeah.
Somewhat. I mean, if you look at China, yeah, they gave up their daughters.
I mean, there's in plenty of countries, there are still women, though, who are set on fire if they have an affair or shame the family. It's not just China.
Stoned.
It goes on today, too, in many ways.
Yeah, the whole story of the Ramayana and the wife proving her devotion to her husband by jumping into the pit of fire with a, seti. And that's supposed to be the penultimate form of grace and devotion for a woman to sacrifice her life for her husband, no matter how poorly she's treated.
Genny, I'm really interested in your journey getting to be San Francisco's poet laureate and some of your big ups and downs, if you've had them, or has it been an easy journey for you? I can't imagine it has as a poet.
Well, journey is the word, yeah. And it's been like helter skelter, it's circuitous, checkered, you name it. It's not been like very chronological. This, I did this, cause and effect. I mean, in some way, cause and effect, but I never thought I'd land here. And, you know, it's such an honor and a surprise to me at this point of time. I feel so, I can't hope for anything else. I've never chased after the market, the commercial direct path as a poet. It's difficult. The kind of poetry I write is not, that commercial at all. And it's very political and has an edge. And that's not kind of the direction of that you take if you want to be accepted in the mainstream, like a lot of academic poets and poet laureates, they kind of walk a fine line and they don't get too political in their work. But the important thing is that no matter what your style is or your voice, is that we're here as poets and artists to remind people, human beings, of their humanity. And I think, that's our role in the midst of all of these crises and wars and violence and the direction this country is going on. I think more than ever, we're needed to be the moral conscience because we're not afraid to speak out. And as you see, people are being harassed and fired for speaking their truth, as professors, as journalists, as activists, and we can't stop. And these kind of forums for us women, I think, are very important because we need to support each other when we do stick our necks out and speak out against injustices that we see against women, against, Palestinians or whoever, Africans. Our life is short and our purpose, we need to have meaning in our lives. And it's not just about, our portfolios and, we do need to, protect our social security, that's for sure. And we need to protect education, public education. I grew up, I never went to a private school. It was all public education. And that's important to preserve. We need to protect our environment, our post office, and all of these federal programs are being cut. So it just drives me crazy that so much has been lost in such a short time. And I think we need to get on it quickly and turn this boat around.
Yeah, so what I'd like to do is ask the people out here and what would you like to see happen for women in this still very patriarchal society? And I think what Genny's talking about is that one is artists. We are activists. Artists are innately activists, and what are they going to do to us? I mean, we aren't in a corporate situation where we can't speak up, but as artists, we can. And we have the privilege and the ability to do that. But as women, what else can we do? Because we are actually very powerful. So how do you live your life as a woman? How do you want your womanness to make a difference in this world? What would you like to see happen?
That is a hard question, because even apart from our identity as a woman, I feel like just as a human being right now, it's so important to step up. And a lot of people are talking about this, but none of us seem to be able to put our hands on what we can actually do
I know.
yet. I feel like it's just starting to bubble up maybe, and hopefully
Right.
there's some people out there like the Women's March that might, bring us together more. But I feel like we're also in the shock
Yeah, we're still
phase.
overwhelmed.
It's
Yeah.
fairly new.
Right.
And I think a lot of people are in disbelief. It's almost like stages of grief. And we're not
Mhm.
at the, other stages where we can
Mhm.
make some movement.
But we have to. We have to get ahead of it a little bit. We really do. So, Mindy, what do you think? Natasha, Susan, Barbara, Mary, Terry, Sally,
Okay, okay.
Lotus, Sam.
So I just, yeah, it's really hard to know what to do. Does marching in the street do anything? Yes, no, I don't know. But I do know that I recently received notification that there's going to be a nationwide day of protest on April 5th. Do people know about this?
Mm.
No.
No.
So, it's called Hands Off, a national day of protest. People in cities around the country will come out to insist that we must stop Trump and Musk's illegal power grab. I got the notification from the Thousand Grandmothers, but
Does it
I
sound like a
imagine,
march? Like an actual public march or something?
I
Or
guess so. Yeah, there's not. It just says there's more information, and to find events near you, it's handsoff2025.com.
great.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, great. Yeah, thanks for sharing that.
There's
Thank you.
also, if you're in the Bay Area on March 25th, what day is that? At noon at the EPA Region 9 headquarters on Hawthorne Street in San Francisco, there's going to be an emergency protest about the attack on environmental justice work and the EPA.
It's great.
So we can all be part of that. We sign petitions, we can go on marches, but there has to be more.
It has to be more.
What? So
But
Wendy, what do you think?
revolution.
Yeah, but what does that look like?
We're trying to hold our, I don't know. I mean, because my daughter she lives out of the country, but we were talking about this, and her thing was like, so what are the Democrats doing? Which is what a lot of people have been saying too.
Right,
And it's
right,
like,
right.
They're
what
not
are,
even united on this.
what are
either.
our elected officials doing? When will a change happen? Well, do we have to wait for 2 years with the midterms? Are there going to be midterms? Is there ever going to be another
Oh my
election?
God.
You
I think it's
like-
gonna have to happen like a cyber attack, you
Mm.
know.
So,
Some
but
kind
Mary
of,
and Mindy, you both have your sound off, so that on, yeah.
Oh.
So that means that you want to say something, right?
Well, I
She's
called
assuming.
in Washington State. Well, Nancy, I've seen you and Robert up at Orcas Island a couple of times. Joy Ross and I came up, and some years back. Oh, and you were at the Asian Art Museum some years ago too with Allison Cox.
Oh,
Anyway,
that's a long time ago. Yes.
I call my state senators and representative at least once or twice a week, those 10 Democrats that sided with the Republicans
Ugh.
and voted for the current. I called them and I said, how could you be such a stink bug? And how you hurt so many people doing that. So what I do is I'm calling people, Nancy, and I've been in marches. Says I'm on Whidbey Island myself. I'm looking over at the backside of Fort Casey, so I'm a little bit out of here. It's very scary. I'm 71 years old. I'm on Social Security. What can I do? I can't sit here and do nothing. So calling representatives, I'm excited about this April 5th thing, but every day Trump did a bunch of horrible things just today.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
Every
how
day.
do we mobilize and make a difference
Yeah.
to stop this, because he ignores the judges say you can't do that, that's illegal,
Yeah.
you got to stop it. He turns around, does whatever he wants anyway,
Right.
because there's
Mhm.
no repercussion.
He's
And
Yeah,
doing
it's
all this stuff because he can, because nobody is stopping him.
Right.
well, and the judges, they're not
Yeah.
going to go out and stop him. And it's interesting, if anybody knows who Vishen Lakhiani is, he's from Mind Valley. He wrote an interesting article that's not political, but it's how Trump's strategy and tactics are working. And it's about attack and deny. And I went,
Overwhelm and
wow.
confuse. Yes.
And lie.
Yeah.
well, you know, it's
I
fascism.
could go on.
That's
I'll
what
be quiet.
fascism is. You ignore the rules, the rule of law, and you do what you want, come what may, because you know your opposition isn't equipped to deal with you. And you now
And you
own the
deny,
army,
and
the
you-
Pentagon, the FBI, the police.
Yeah.
So you
They're
have
very
all of
smart.
that.
They're actually very smart. And Democrats haven't been as smart. Natasha, you have your hand up.
I just first want to just say thanks so much to, hi to Anne and Nancy, my Orcas neighbors, and Jenny
Ah.
Lim. It's so nice to meet you, and I was so moved by all of your readings, and I just wanted to speak to a couple different things, just really quick, just to switch gears for a second. I apologize if that's awkward. But just thinking about the question about authenticity and just how the three of you really showed us like just three different versions of that today, and listening to the three of you side by side really got me thinking about how authenticity is like this intersection between the all of our social identities, and then our the way that those all sort of intersect inside of us to produce our unique voice in the world. And then that also intersects with the authenticity that we bring to our craft, like how we use language, how we use storytelling. And I just saw how beautifully all of those elements were coalescing in each of the art forms that you brought today. And just a quick thing about just our current political situation and what to do. I just have personally found a lot of strength and motivation, and also great ideas just in my local Democratic Party. I'm living in Kelso, Washington, which is a very red, heavily MAGA county in southern Washington. And we don't I miss the Orcas Women's Coalition a lot, but we do have we have the Kelso Democratic, or Cowlitz County Democratic Women. So there's there's always going to be like the main Democrat organization, and it's such a great time to just to plug into this in in our communities, I think, because we're having to recreate that party right now.
Right,
Like
right.
there's so many people want to get involved. There's so much fresh energy coming in and fresh voices coming in and participation, and people of all generations and all genders and all cultures and walks of life. And it's just these are great hubs in our community to find out about all these things that are going on, because there are tons of protests happening, tons of boycotts happening, and it can be hard to keep track of them all. So these places also act as a hub for all of that information. And this is definitely, for me, and I think a lot of people that I've talked to in my group, just really draw so much strength and motivation and just fun too. The revolution has to be fun to be sustainable, and that's something that community and art both can really give to us.
Absolutely. And I think coming together is going to be our strength, because we are stronger in numbers. So exactly what you're doing is what we all need to do. We have to find our people, and we have to come together, and we have to be able to figure out what to do and be loud enough about it. We can't be quiet and stay, you know, behind the veil. We have to really, we have to be loud enough. We have to be louder than Trump. I don't know how we're going to do that, but we have to do it.
I was really thinking too about how civic participation itself is like an art form. So we have to just get out there and start doing stuff, and that's how we kind of find our own way of being in that space.
It's a journey. It's a journey.
Yeah.
And it's a journey to learning more, acquiring better skills, and then putting it to work for us. Yeah. Yeah. We
Wow.
got to do something, guys. We really do. We have to become women warriors, and men have to become men warriors. We can't sit back anymore.
Righteous warriors.
Righteous warriors, yes.
We can call ourselves the new Sisters of Revolution.
Yes.
Wow. Did you just come up with that, or have you been
Yeah.
thinking about that?
This
That's
came up.
good.
Yeah.
That's really good.
I can already picture the t-shirt.
We need to read
Right.
tonight. Yeah.
And Robert's a graphic designer, so he can do it.
Well, I don't remember the person's name, but there's a famous social forecaster, and he's looked at all of the things going on and has really said we won't get out of this until we hit bottom. So there's going to be a really bad bottom over the next 4 years. And
Yeah, but they've been saying that for years.
Yeah, we've been
Is the
bottoming and
bottom
bottoming.
Yeah, we keep bottoming.
this is really
The
different
black
than
hole.
his second term.
Yeah, this is very different. Much
Really-
more extreme
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's more daring.
and
Yeah.
fast
You know,
moving.
We're
Yeah.
like lobsters, or crabs or frogs.
Frog.
You put them in the
Frogs.
water, and it's just nice water, but it gets hotter and hotter as the
Yeah.
stove keeps boiling it, and you never know that you're going to be boiled. You never know you are boiling until it's too late. And that's what it
I think
feels
a lot of people know that, but it's not the.
But it's the
It's-
same
It,
for
it's got to hit a mass. It's got to hit a certain.
Like a tipping point.
Yeah.
It has to hit home for each person. What is
Well, that's-
your bottom line? Yeah. What
I-
seals the
yeah.
deal for you to get out in the street?
And so when would you like that to happen? In 1 year? In 10 years?
The sooner the better.
In a week.
Yes.
But I
Can't
don't know
wait.
how, I think it's just going to have to happen as more and more people are affected by what's going on.
Something
Well,
I see happening is just that's different about how we respond is that it's not going to be a big singular event. Protest is going to become our way of life, and we're just going to start doing these things on a regular basis, making the phone calls, going to the marches, doing the boycotts, doing all of it just as a new part of our regular routine.
But it's got to be more than us. It's got to be more than the usual suspects. It's got to be, I mean, that I think from what I hear on the news, that is happening, that a lot of Republicans who are holding meetings in their districts are getting an earful, but they're not paying attention. And then some of them stopped having the things altogether. But
They've
if
been
that,
ordered
as
to
those
stop.
folks, the people who are Republicans, the people who voted for them, the people who
Mhm.
Yeah,
got out, as they start being more and more negatively affected,
right.
And
Their
then I
vote
think that's when,
backfired on them.
yeah, that's when the momentum will build. Because if it's just the same people who have never liked Trump, that obviously didn't work because he got
Right.
voted in.
Right.
So
So a lot of
Well-
people are leaving our conversation, and so I wanted to make sure
Yeah.
that you all knew about donation. And if you make a donation to Eth-No-Tec, we can give it to our guests as well for giving them us their time and their art. I should have said that earlier. I forgot. Did I say it in the beginning? I don't know. I don't think so. Oh my
The message was
forget.
there.
Nancy,
Well, you were frozen, so
I was
I don't-
I'm still frozen.
I know.
I don't expect anything and wouldn't accept anything from your nonprofit, so it should just go to Eth-No-Tec if there's any donations.
Yeah,
I'm going
same
to put
here.
in the chat a list of books that someone had asked if we
Yes.
had some Asian American authors to recommend. So I'm going to just put it in there if anyone needs it, and I'll probably make an Instagram post at some point this week with those books too.
Yeah, it's been wonderful here. Yeah.
Thank you,
But
guys.
I'm
You-
gonna have to walk my roomie. He's been so patient.
I met
You're
Rumi.
right. I hope it's not a human. You know,
No, Rumi came to your Oshogatsu.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
I
that's
try to
right.
bring him wherever he's welcome. He's not always welcome.
Like many of us.
Yeah, I know. And he doesn't complain. He has to protest.
Yeah, we have to up the ante. We really do. So I'm hoping all of you will feel a little more inspired to do something more. And I again thank you so much for being here with us. And if Anne and Jenny can stay on so that we can, just kind of do a little closure. And thank you, Natasha, for your wonderful, inspiring talk, and that we have to do it. We have to. Thank you, Susan, for being with us and sticking with us. And Mindy, of course, who's always here, and Jan and Leon and Sam and Lotus. Thank you so much for being with us. And I
Lotus
hope
here.
to see you next time. Please, if you can, come to our Strong Like Bamboo, which is coming up on May 22nd and 25th, in which we will want to do the same thing. We want to really bring people in the flesh, though, together. It will be recorded so that you can, see it afterwards. But I'm bringing the Latino and the Asian communities together to build some bridges, to build some coalition, to work on what's going on together. And we want to bring artists, musicians and storytellers together, because we are the best way to build bridges. We really are. And that's on the May 22nd. But we'll send you all of that. And May 25th is when we have actual professional storytellers coming and telling their stories about their experiences and the healing that they were able to do. And then people will be able to break up into small groups and share their own stories. And I will make sure that you, if you're not in the Bay Area, that you do get to see the recordings, because I'm hoping they will be extremely inspiring. So thank you again so much.
Thanks, everybody.
For being here with us. Woman warriors! And Sam, you too. Sam, the warrior. All right. Thank you. Have a good evening. Bye.
Thanks, Anne.
Oh, it turned out really swell. I loved it.
Well, yeah. Yes. Except we were during Genny, we were totally off.
Yeah.
Totally
How
off.
big-
I could hear you, but
Really?
everything went blank. Yeah.
Oh, I could hear
Go on.
Jenny.
On the phone when Genny was telling was during her
But
reading.
you couldn't hear Jenny?
We had nothing until we went on our phone to sign in.
Really?
Yeah.
I could hear her perfectly.
Everyone else could. It was
Yeah.
only
No,
me.
No, I'm just saying because our system died.
Something over here.
Oh.
Our system died, and we were
Oh.
totally not in. So we
I
had
knew
to-
that must
so we
have been
went from
so
our
fun.
computer to our phone
Oh, wow.
to listen.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm sorry.
Oh my gosh.
Always
That's-
happens.
You handled it so calmly. I would
know.
have been in
Uh,
a frenzy.
So
Yeah,
stressful for you.
I texted Anne, "Are we still? Is it still going on?
Oh, God. And
everyone
I
get-
had,
Did everyone kick?
I had
kick
no
off?
idea that you
Yeah.
you weren't getting us.
We were
well, I also,
Wow.
I
That's-
turned my phone onto airplane mode so that my Wi-Fi is stronger for video.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so I won't get messages.
Yeah,
Oh.
but I called Brittany
Oh.
too. I called her and I
Yeah.
texted her and got nothing back. So, but obviously you
Ooh.
guys continued even though we weren't there. So that's
Yeah,
great.
we couldn't
That's
tell.
great.
Yeah,
Good,
Tell
good.
it all.
no one could tell. Yeah, it was great. Everyone seemed to enjoy it very much.
Ah, and it
Yeah.
went
Yeah.
from 14 to 26.
Yeah,
That's
you see?
good.
Yeah. People
Was-
don't, register that early
Thank you,
all the time.
folks. You're great.
Yeah. Thank you, Robert.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
sorry
yeah.
about the technicalities. Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah, it was really crazy.
Yeah.
But we're
Yeah.
fine. Yeah.
That's technology, when it
Yeah,
works
we're
is
really bad
great.
at it. We are so bad at it.
No, I mean, you're able to do
But
a
you
lot.
have to depend on it so much.
I know, we do. You'd think we'd be better at it after all these years.
There's something
We
happened.
started during the pandemic.
There's a ghost in the machine.
Must just be your
Well-
Wi-Fi bandwidth.
Yeah.
Something went
Hey, I gotta go.
Hi, Jenny. It was nice
See,
meeting you.
great
Jenny.
to hear your beginning, your
Oh my gosh.
prologue. I can't wait to read both your books.
Oh, likewise with the poems.
Yeah. Are you gonna
Thank you.
print a book, Jenny, of your poems?
Yeah,
part of your
sooner or
reading?
late. City Lights is supposed to be coming out with they do a laureate book, but I'm
Okay.
not liking. I have to keep working on some of the poems. It takes me a
Sure.
long time.
Oh yeah.
I once it's published, if I'm stuck with one that poems I don't like, it's gonna
I know.
kill me. Yeah.
I just re-edited my book again. So
Oh no! Yeah.
you know, it's
Typos.
never over, really, right?
Yeah, right.
You're the
Yes, I don't like that word.
no.
And the typos. He found lots of typos too.
Oh yeah, that always happens. No
That
matter how much
happens.
you proofread, you know.
Even
Yeah.
Random House books have typos in them.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
find them in,
When
in
I'm
the
reading books, I
majors.
go, and I try to
I know. I said,
circle
gosh,
them.
you guys are supposed to be professionals. Oh well.
Yeah, but
Okay,
that's
gotta
better.
go. See,
Bye.
thank
Thank
you. It
you.
was
Bye, Jenny.
lovely.
Jenny.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anne.
Thank you.
So,
Oh,
Anne, how
lights
did,
going up.
yeah?
I think
did-
his sun's going down.
No,
That was fun. Thank you.
you're welcome. Thank you for
I
joining.
hope you weren't too stressed out. And your book sounds really lovely. Just
Thank you.
natural storytelling.
Yeah. Yeah. What I did was I took our performance piece, Red Altar, and then I started filling in. So it already had its own, place it was going.
Are you going to have it at Darville's in the library?
You're going to do it at the library. You see, we talked about it. a
No, I
while
mean, are
back.
you going to have the books at
Oh.
Darville's for sale?
Yeah, I'll try. Yeah, I definitely want to.
Did we pick the actual date yet? Let me look at my.
Sometime in July, I think, but I don't remember the date either.
Yeah, I don't know if you actually picked the date.
No,
We
maybe
should do
not.
that though.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I don't, Jan, are you going to be, when are you coming to Orcas? I don't know if she's still there. She's
No.
maybe she fell asleep. So, so it'll be, don't you think July's a good time? You said it was also summer and people are at the lake swimming and they don't want to come in
I
anywhere
thought
when the
you-
sun is out. And
I thought you said, I'm trying to look through our old emails. I thought you actually said June.
oh,
We're going to be in Australia.
yeah, nope.
You said you were coming in
Wanted-
June. I
We
thought.
wanted to come in June, but always something comes up. And every year we say we're going to come in May or June, and it always ends up being July.
We probably
Okay, will you send some dates you prefer so I can run those by Sam? He books pretty far in advance, so.
Okay.
safer in July.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you can also, because once we're there in July, August, September, October, whatever you have open, give me your dates because we can fit into that.
I think that might be harder for Sam with programming. Why don't you guys just send him 3 dates you're interested in and he'll put some placeholders down.
If there's openings on those dates, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He tries to keep it not too much going on in July and August because there's so much tourist stuff. So
Mhm.
those months will be more open.
Okay. All right. But certainly welcome tourists, right? I'm frozen.
Yeah, no, that'll be good. But I'm just saying he doesn't plan a lot because everyone's at the lake and
Yeah, I know.
and it's
So,
his time off a little bit. So
oh, okay.
I'm saying there'll be more spaces than usual available in those months.
On July, August. Okay. And less in September.
Yeah, September gets pretty busy actually.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
And then October's Film Fest, so.
Oh, yes. So no, none of that. All right.
So you want to give yourself enough time so that Sarah can order the books for Darville's and all of that.
We'll bring books up.
Boxes.
Yeah, we'll bring some boxes of
Okay. Okay, cool. All right. Well, let me know once you get closer to figuring out some times so we can make sure
Okay.
that gets on the books.
Okay. Will
Okay.
do. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Anne.
Have a
Thanks.
good night.
Yeah, you too.
Bye.
Thank you again. Bye. Bye, Leon, Sam, Jan, Lotus. We're still on.
Whoever's there.
I think they all went to eat.
maybe the
They left
staff
them
members,
on.
too.
Okay.
I don't know what the fuck.
Okay.